worst case I ever had as a social worker, and the Christmas that changed everything. 3 years ago, I was a social worker and I got the worst case of my life. Two siblings, 6 and 8 years old, had been locked in a basement for most of their lives by their biological parents. When we found them, they could barely speak. They had never seen sunlight. They were so malnourished they looked like shadows. The foster system was overwhelmed, and nobody wanted to take in two kids that traumatized. They screamed at loud noises, didn't know how to use a bathroom properly, and they were convinced adults always hurt you. My wife and I made a decision that changed our lives. We brought them home, knowing it would be the hardest thing we ever did. For months, they refused to sit at the table because they thought it was a trap. They hid food under the bed, in closets, even inside their shoes, convinced we would stop feeding them any day. They flinched whenever our voices got louder, even if we were just calling them to dinner. Sarah slept inside a closet because open spaces terrified her. Jake didn't say a single word for 3 months. Not one. He just stared at the walls. Nightmares every night. Sarah waking up screaming like she was still in that basement. Jake wetting the bed and trying to hide it because he expected to be hit. Simple things like turning on a light or opening a door could trigger a panic attack. But slowly, things shifted. Small steps, then real progress. Sarah started sleeping in her bed. Jake started making eye contact. They began trusting there would always be food, that we wouldn't hurt them, that this was home. Then December came, and I started decorating for Christmas. And I noticed something I'll never forget. Both kids stared at the tree with pure terror, backing away like it was going to attack them. I asked what was wrong, and Sarah whispered, "During the time of lights, the bad people heard us more, so we cried louder and the neighbors couldn't hear because of the Christmas music." That's when I realized Christmas wasn't joy to them. It was fear. I explained carefully what Christmas is supposed to be. Family, love, gifts, a magical man who brings happiness to kids. Sarah looked at me like it was a fairy tale. Jake looked down like good things weren't meant for him. On Christmas Eve, I stayed up building the most magical morning I could. Half-eaten cookies, empty milk, muddy boot prints from the fireplace to the tree, stockings overflowing, a note from Santa saying he was proud of them. Christmas morning, Sarah shook me awake in tears. The good man came. He really came. And for the first time in 5 months, Jake spoke. He looked at me and whispered, "Are we good kids now?" I held them both and couldn't breathe. They didn't even play with the gifts. They just touched them like they might disappear, asking again and again if they were really allowed to keep them. And ever since then, when I see Christmas lights, I go right back to that moment.